Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode or the next two episodes of Not For Nothing. If you guys have been tuning in, then you may be aware of the last three episodes that I had done was on Dark Side Tattoo. I am not completely finished with that segment of the Dark Side years. There's still a handful of individuals that I do want to record, but getting them out in a timely manner to coincide with what's going on right now really doesn't work. And I'm not trying to just do one block of just Dark Side. So I'm going to be touching on that with a handful of individuals that I've worked with in the past. So be aware that that will be coming out. The next two episodes are actually going to focus on the time I spent in Richmond, Virginia and Norfolk, Virginia. A couple of weeks ago, I went down to Virginia to take part in J.D. Crowe's Norfolk convention, which was basically a gathering of old timers. If you guys didn't know, a couple of years ago, he had done that, a year and a half ago, he had done that with the Richmond convention, and it was tremendous. It was really, really fun. I got the opportunity to work this year's convention, which was held in Norfolk, away from the Richmond convention. And in that time, I actually got to hang out with a lot of really good friends, reminisce the days of old, and had an absolute blast. And in that, I got to sit down with Jason Eisenberg. That is the video that will follow this right now. I am going to apologize, and I so wish that everybody is going to stick with me on this, but the audio on this is absolute dog shit. The convention was loud as fuck. I wasn't wearing my microphone properly. I should probably scrap this particular episode, but I really did have a great time talking to Jason. He has some amazing things to talk about. It's us discussing conventions of old, and it has some great, interesting stories. So I apologize. If you guys are not into hearing the fucking bullshit excuses of how bad the sound is and whatnot, then my advice is to fuck off and not watch this episode. You put the time in and you actually do take the time to watch this episode. It was a good episode in my opinion. The one following that actually took place in Richmond a few days after the convention in Norfolk. I'm not going to go into that now. I'll go into that when the episode airs. So I do hope that you stick around and deal with the shitty audio. But if you don't, I totally understand as well. Again, it's a work in progress. And I do hope to get better at it. So in the meantime, it is Sunday afternoon. Cheers, and see you on the other side. Take care. Bye.
Miami Beach was 97 because it was still Tattoo Tour. And then after that, it was gone. But that would have been October 96.
October. Okay, yeah. That would have been October 96.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one you said.
That was the first Eden Rock Miami Beach show.
Okay, yeah. So I wasn't at the first one. I was at the
I thought you were at, you were at the second one.
I was at the second one because at that time I was dating my wife. Well, wow. who eventually.
Yeah.
But that was the first one I got to work.
So you just said memorable. There's a lot of memorable stuff, but here you go. Lyle had a history with my mentor. They weren't the best of friends. So I walked over to Lyle's booth and he had these books out. He had a couple books out there and he's sitting there and he had a cigar in his mouth. He knew where I worked. He knew who I worked under and put the cigar in his mouth, leaned back like this and he goes, "Where's Louie?" Knowing that Lou was dead.
Wow.
So,
he
smiled. Dude, he didn't give a shit. So he smiled, got up, patted me on my shoulder and walked away. And I'm eyeballing the first blue Sailor Jerry Volume 1. I'm like,
oh, Jesus.
That old man got out of eye shot. I grabbed that thing, shoved it under my shirt, and ran back over to the Tattoos by Lou booth. Chris Garver and Greg Christian are tattooing. I ran into the booth, shoved it under the table, and went, "Don't ask," and walked away. Fucking just proud as shit. Fast forward, Atlanta. 99, 2000, can't remember. You remember the posters, the Robo posters, the hearts and the suns, 100 hearts, 100 suns, okay. And the old vintage machines. He had those three posters. $100, all three. So I was like, how you doing, Lyle? He's like, good, kid, how are you? I still had a pompadour back then, and,
You think he recognized you, or?
hang on. So I was like, let me get these 3 posters. He looks at me and goes, great, that's $170.
He caught you for the
Fucker knew I stole his book. Joke's on him. I still have the book and the posters in my shop.
Well, isn't the joke's on him, though? He still got his money out of you.
Yeah, he did. Never mind. All right, so you got one again.
I think the funny thing about that, too, is though, you can't get over. I mean, you couldn't get over much on those guys. I think that they were the original snake oil salesmen. They were the original carniacs. They were the original guys that did whatever they could to stay in the fucking game. And it is fucked up, though, the whole how to live. That's mad fucked up.
So there's a gentleman here, an older gentleman, who told me when I was very young, there's nothing you can think of, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can just think you're making up on the fly that we haven't done, figured out how to do it and not get caught. So if you don't want to get caught, don't just be yourself, be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? Like, to say if you don't want to get caught. Or like,
it's a scare tactic.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Well, but again, I think if you are yourself, and a lot of tattooers from back in, I won't say this. A lot of tattooers, were that. They were just themselves. But how many, in the years that you've been in this industry, how many of these motherfuckers do you know are just straight up fucking snake in the grass, like fucking chameleons? Like, they can be anything I personally know quite a few.
Several. And that's something that thankfully you don't see as much anymore, because people don't have, I'm not saying people, but a lot of younger people don't have the backbone that it took to be that person. Because those guys were always on go. If you were going to have any sort of confrontation with them, they were going to escalate it before you did. And it's one of the things that allowed them to get away with so much.
Right.
People were afraid of their reactions. Now, what are you afraid? Somebody's going to go online and cry about you? Oh, Jesus Christ, tag me in it, please. I'll share it with my friends.
Exactly.
I will share it.
So please.
I'll make sure my wife shares it on the shop page.
Drop some fucking bombs, baby. So, but it is true. When you think about how original those guys were, I think it's mainly because they didn't know how else to be. No. But the funny thing about that is, if you think about these guys, a lot of these guys are still around. A lot of these guys lasted longer than some of the young dudes trying to play. I don't want to say play act at being those guys, but they had the same persona. They had the same. I don't want to say animal, because I'm not even sure if that's the right way to read it.
No, that's a really good.
They're almost the same people, but they burn out half the time. These are the guys who go through rehab, have serious trouble with drugs. Not to say that a lot of the older guys didn't have that either, but
they weren't as public with it. They weren't as open with it. Like, I'm not going to get into names because it's none of anybody's business at that point, but there's a lot of older guys out there that struggled and struggled and struggled. And when we were young, they would get sober, and then they would relapse and get sober. And then finally, after being told by their doctors, you are going to die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to die. One of two things. They literally should have got the pot. They either got their act together or they died.
yeah.
And I had a conversation with an old timer, someone older than us, and he said he got tired of watching his friends die from the same shit. Now he's a vegetarian.
Wow, that's a change.
Yeah.
That's a change.
Yeah.
Well, what was the cat's name that was right up the road from Dave Attenito?
Painless Paul?
Painless Paul.
I love that man.
Oh my God! So I only got the opportunity to meet him on a handful of occasions.
He was a character.
He was a
character. God.
But I remember him talking to Dave, and he came into Dave's shop, and he's like, "Yep, I had my 5th stint put in today. Doctor said I got to throw away my cast iron pans." And he's like, "Oh yeah, what'd you tell the doctor?" You go, "Nope, you need to get yourself some more fucking stints." And dude, that was like, you sit there and you think about it, and you're like, wow, that's like, just no shit's given. And again, I think he died of a fucking heart attack.
So when he died, Dave calls me, and in true Dave fashion, he's like, "What's up, Eisenberg?" I was like, "What are you up to?" He's like, "Well, Paul died." Just like that.
Just yeah.
Paul died.
Yeah. No.
Just Paul died. It was like, no kidding. He goes, "Let's be honest. We're all kind of surprised that he lasted this long." The first time I met Paul was when I was teaching for health educators, that we had to go to Gwinnett County and put on a class there. And there's Paul. He's probably 65 at that point, just now getting used to wearing gloves at that point. Still smokes cigarettes in his shop. I know that.
Yeah.
And we're giving these lessons and everything, and he's sitting back there with his hands behind his head, shaking his head, looking right at me, looking like right at me.
That was one of those things where the guys, they just fucking hated everything they fucking knew. And they knew that the only way they were going to be able to stick it out was to actually follow, was to conform.
Just show up, pay your money, get your certificate, and move on with your life.
Right, exactly.
But he looked at me and gave me the look. The best way I can put it is when you're a kid and you do something, and the adult in the room goes, "I am so disappointed in you."
So I've been doing shows pretty heavily in the early part of my career, from like 90. I think I started like 94, 95. So it was like a year and a half after I started.
You were already on the road when I started.
Yeah.
Like on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like, and it was more out of, it wasn't so much out of, like I knew that I wanted to make a name for myself once I got that first article, and I knew that that article got me.
I remember that article.
A lot of clients.
Joe standing there looking all just nice and young.
Such a horrible fucking photo.
It was like, Astro Boy, check this shit out.
It was so bad. Dude.
You look like I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, oh yeah, big time. And we used to do that all the time. We used to dress like that every Saturday at the shop.
We dress like that every day. We had to wear button-down shirts at Tattoos by Lou. I just happened to be a greaser. So look, the two greatest moments of my life when someone said something to me is when my wife said yes, and she just nodded her head up and down. She didn't use words. The second and most pivotal were 4 words. Lou Scabaris said to me at 10 o'clock at night at South Beach Tattoo, the location, "When can you start?"
Shit, that's pretty.
I said, "Tomorrow." And he said, "Be here at 11. Emerson will show you the ropes." Turned around and walked out.
That's pretty amazing.
And I was still a piercer. I wasn't even tattooing.
Hold on. Are you taking photos?
I'm not. I'm just checking something on my phone and putting it away.
I mean, that's got. I didn't. So again, I didn't know who Lou was until I met Emerson. Actually, Emerson and Greg Christian. And like when I knew that, when I met him and he told me where they worked, and then talked about Omni, talked about all Chris Garver coming through, and I knew Garver from New York and whatnot. I mean, all I remember is being like, "Fuck, this is like those are some heavy fucking hitters. That's legit." So even having been on the road and making a name for myself there, you still can't help but be envious of guys like yourself and a lot of other people.
We didn't know what the fuck we had.
Well, exactly.
We had no idea what we were doing.
But so how do you say that? Because it's true. Because when you think about it from the perspective of like Emerson's perfect example, Brandon's perfect example, they were fucking train wreckers when I met them. Like they were party fucking maniacs.
You met them when they were growing their hair out, didn't you?
Yeah,
they were competing to see who could go the longest without cutting their hair.
That would make sense.
You know what they discovered? My fucking Murray's pomade at the shop was great for not having to shower. So they were taking scoops out of my pomade. And I have little hands. They had grown man hands at 22 years old. And there are these giant sausage dig marks in there. I'm like, I'm going to go buy a hat.
Did you ever see Raising Arizona with John Goodman and the other guy?
In the bathroom after they climb out of the dirt in the gas station. Scoop.
It was amazing. They're combing out the fucking mud.
Squit.
The funny thing is, too, is exactly, if you've got that much pomade in your hair, especially Murray's, dude, water just...
You can't wash it.
Like coming off a
it's not a matter of not washing it. You can't wash it.
Dude,
you can't.
I've been using proper pomade. So I started with Royal Crown.
But you have Italian hair.
I
have desert wandering Yiddish boy hair that looks like an afro if I don't do anything with it.
Yiddish boy hair.
I went from shaved head to a pompadour like you're supposed to do, back to a shaved head. I got tired. I'm over it.
I mean, I don't consider it to be a lot of work because I do it every day, but I don't think it's that hard.
If you took a week off, you would think it was a lot of work.
Well, I did that when I started growing a beard.
Your beard was fantastic.
No, it was
it looked like somebody took one of those homeless men and then cut his hair, but left his beard.
That's the worst part about it.
I would like to credit that to Dave Atnito. I can't take credit for that one.
Dude, I got rid of the beard. We were coming back from Kentucky. We stopped in Pittsburgh. We were walking through downtown Pittsburgh, and I remember seeing us all walking through like windows, shop windows. And I remember getting to me, and I'm wearing a fucking hat, and this beard, and I'm wearing my Pendleton, and I'm like, oh my god.
Your dignity came home.
Dude, it was awful. It was like, talk about a rude awakening. I was like, I gotta shave this. And it was that was in, I think, the beginning of April, and I think Easter Sunday I actually shaved.
So, do you remember when we were still wearing masks at the shop, and you had the beard mask?
Yeah.
Do you remember what I said?
No, I don't.
I walked in and went, oh look, the powers that be decided that everyone needed to look ridiculous regardless of your facial hair pattern.
It was the dumbest fucking thing. All I kept thinking was, we all have to wear masks. What about if you have a beard? And it's like everybody has...
I shaved mine off, because man, mine went down to there.
Yeah, dude, I mean, yeah, it's true. You have a fucking huge beard. I mean, and I started growing my beard at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Before the mask mandate had happened and everything else. And at that point, I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not making light of the situation, but I guess I kind of am, because whatever.
All I'm going to say is this. A lot of apologies have happened in the last year and a half. Yeah.
Well,
we digress.
Exactly. We're not going there. So let me ask you a question. Like, working for Lou, or working at Lou's at that time, like, did it make it easier for you to get into certain shows? Like, were you doing a lot of shows back then, or you were just kind of like dicking around?
So you have to remember, a few months after Lou died, I left. Which led to the question that everybody asked me over the years after we all got, one by one, got back together, which is, why did you fucking leave? Why did you leave?
That's a big deal. I mean, again, like you said, it's a shop that really had it's more about lineage than it was about fame.
There was no fame back then.
Right. No,
if you were
true,
famous, it just meant that tattooists all over the world knew who you were because of something rare back then, which was a book about you, or photographs in a tattoo magazine, or constant exposure because you were on tour so much. That was famous back then. Now, famous is marketing deals, clothing deals, television endorsements, fame, legitimate fame.
Which is, if you think about it, I don't think it's proper fame.
Instagram fame isn't fame. You're actually, and I'm going to go ahead and say the ugly part out loud, you are doing nothing but putting advertisers' money in the pockets of the people that own the platform that they're allowing you to use for free.
So let's say that. You say that, but honestly, if you think about it, almost every fucking wannabe famous fucking tattooer
What's the ratio?
From Instagram to tattoo? No, most certainly, you're right there. But if you think about it, I mean, look at all these tattooers that are doing nothing but selling product for fucking every brand out there, whether it be Sullen, and I'm not.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's tattooer supported. Again, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact of the matter is, they're not making that money.
No.
I mean, I've had more people come up to me over the years and be like, "Yeah, man, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this," and 9 times out of 10, it goes nowhere. And the worst part is, I did more on my own.
We've talked about this, yeah.
I sold my own work and actually made more money that way than I did ever working. And that's not entirely true, because when I worked with Pulse, who basically took all my art, everything, and put it together in books, that's where the majority of the money was made. And then I did a couple of projects on my own without Pulse, and I made good money, not quite as much as with Pulse, but mainly because I think by that point things had started dying down. Not only with book sales and stuff like that, but also with my career.
So, before we go back to the convention thing, I will touch on this. I remember when a mutual friend of ours, an Italian, put out his first book and got fucked.
Wait, who is this?
Dave.
Oh, Atenito. When he
did the Spiral book. Well,
so here was the problem. Okay, so how do you get... Oh, he got fucked from King.
Uh-huh.
I forgot about
He got corporately sodomized.
Yeah.
And when I asked him, what are you going to do about it? He goes, I can't do anything about it. Because of the amount of shit that they had at their disposal.
So the fucked up thing about that is,
that was years ago already.
For the longest time, people would be like, everybody was trying to get in on these like these group books, like, oh, somebody in the West
Yeah.
Coast is doing a black and gray thing.
Yeah.
Somebody in the West Coast is doing this. Guy Houston is doing a biomech thing. Blah blah blah. And I used to get mad at people because they would just be like, oh, when are you doing? When is another book coming out? When is another collaboration book coming out? When is it? And I would just be like, dude, grow the fuck up and just print and not for nothing. I might have actually said that to Dave. Because I've said that to a handful of people. I said to them, I was like, grow the fuck up, get the money up, and just publish the fucking book yourself.
We did the second one with Snake Eyes. So, and that was, shit. Jesus Christ, it's 16 years ago or 15 years ago already.
God, yeah, it's fun. And the crazy thing is, look at all the Flash that Dave's produced now. Dave's got to have at least...
All he does is pump out Flash, great Flash.
Gorgeous Flash.
And Dave, being Dave, said, oh, nobody's going to want this. I show people in my shop. He did, he did a sheet of ska Flash, and the Clash. He did each band, and I showed one of my clients. He's like, "Is this guy coming to visit?" And I was like, "I can't get him to leave his fucking shop."
I was gonna say, that motherfucker's not even doing it. Like, he's just he's become a homebody. And the thing is, when he goes away, he actually makes money. Dude, when we did our last Flash event at the shop, and I had traded Flash with Dave, and by the way, he got the shit end of the stick on the trade.
Hey, wait, I have all your Flash.
Yeah, well, I didn't trade anything for you.
That's true. That's true.
The gift.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but I traded with Dave, and he sent me. It was just shy of 100 sheets. Fuck. 100 sheets.
I haven't done 100 sheets in my 30 years.
And like the best thing is, it's solid fucking street shop Flash.
Yes.
And when I say street shop, I mean they're not like they're not $60 bangers. They're like
less than an hour.
Yeah,
well, less than an hour.
You can do. The average piece is going to. Well, no, I shouldn't say the average. The pieces that you're going to get $150 to $200 for, that you will do in less than an hour. You're looking at like $150, $200, and you'll knock it out. And there's a good chunk.
Real quick, just so you know, an entire generation of tattooists just scoffed at us for saying $150 to $200 and being, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's funny because, well, even here at this convention, man, like I've had a couple of people come up to the booth and they're just like, yeah, I'm looking to do something. I'm like, well, I got my books of Flash out, whatever, check something out of there, and they're coming up and like, well, how about something like that? I'm like, like 250, 280, and they're just kind of like, cool, all right, let's do it, But and again, I don't think it's I don't know, maybe I'm undercutting myself, but realistically, it's a fucking banger. It's just, I hate using the word banger. I'm not that generation.
But you know what? But they understand what you meant.
One-shot tattoo. It's like, I just want to. If someone walks out of here, got tattooed at this convention, which, by the way, is a fucking. It's a good environment to say, yeah, I caught a piece at the Norfolk convention.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. Do you remember when we were younger? It was expected to get a chest eagle in one shot.
Yeah. So yeah, sort of. I do. Actually.
But I'm talking about how bigger tattoos were expected to be done at one shot.
Yeah.
The idea of, okay, we're going to outline it and then come back. No, that didn't happen. Yeah. The first time I saw a big tattoo that wasn't finished right off the rip was Darren's chest that Mike did. The big vulture with the ohm.
Yeah.
And he just didn't get it finished because he ran out of time. It wasn't because Darren couldn't take it. Emerson got a giant rose and a dagger that went from there to there.
I remember that.
And just massive tattoo in one shot. And Darren was like, yeah, no problem. But it just got a little too late and they had to stop. And I said to Darren, I was like, what, you couldn't take it? And he said, I don't see your chest tattooed. But he would have gotten it done in one shot because that's just what we did.
I think I would go as far as to say it was probably like 98 when that started happening, where you went to get tattooed and you got an outline and some black shading. Like when I got my forearm done from Ledger, he did the...
Yeah, that was Ledger.
Well, it was Ledger, and he drew it on, but he drew like from here to here, to here, and it was drawn on, he outlined it, and then, you know what, I think he just outlined it. I went into Manhattan again.
Whoa, in the apartment?
No, he had just left the apartment, he was working at New York at Dorm.
Oh, shit.
And I got tattooed there, so I think he just did the outline. Yeah, I think he just did the outline, and then we came back, he did all the black shading, and then I think the third session he did all the color. And the color, believe it or not, took longer than the black shading, which was shocking to me because this thing.
Wait, do the 7 mag?
Dude, he fucking hammered the fucking shit out
13.
of me, dude. Like, my arm was like that. Like, I was like, holy shit. But it was 3 sessions, I think. But each session was only like 4 hours, I think. You know, they were short sessions.
Yeah, but 4 hours on the arm is a lot.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, 4. But he was also back to back. Like, he had me at, like, you know, at noon, and he had somebody else coming in at 5. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was just knocking out one tattoo, like, over the course of a 6-hour, 7-hour day.
So, I mean, I had always seen Ledger's work. The New York contingent for Tattoos by Lou.
Right.
But in 2003, Reno Price had gotten a Ganesh from Ledger.
Yeah,
And Reno's sitting there and we're talking and he kept going like this, like bobbing his ankle. I was like, Reno, what you got right there? And he goes, oh, Ledger. You want to see a Ledger tattoo? And he pulled his pant leg up. It faded so seamlessly into Reno's skin tone. It was stunning. And it was pinks. It was what you'd imagine, a Mike Ledger reproduction of a Hindu painting. Because Mike was the man for that. Yeah. And it was on the back of Reno's calf, and he wasn't like a muscular guy. He was, 5'11", but
it probably filled perfect.
Every angle he was standing, there was something so interesting about it. You didn't care that part of it was rolling off the other side. And I still, when people talk about like who were influential tattooists when you were younger, of course I hit the greatest hits because I'm 51 years old. Say Philip Lou, but then when you say Mike Ledger, you get the same reaction from the young guys. Who?
See, that's the God's honest shame because, like, to me, Ledger was the shit back in the day. Absolute. Especially being from Long Island. Like, the island was such a small place.
Yeah.
And there was only a handful of guys who were traveling and making a name for themselves internationally. And Ledger, to me, and again, I was a small-time, dumb-ass kid from Long Island that I didn't understand, like, how important it was to travel. I didn't understand how important it was to meet all these international fucking tattooers from all over the fucking world, and then go someplace and tattoo with them and stuff. It took me probably about 3 years, my first trip to Europe, to realize just how important that is. And Ledger was the first one for me personally, and also the fact that he was doing something I honestly don't think a lot of people on Long Island were doing.
No.
For Manhattan, it was fucking
no.
regular,
Long Island, no. It was not a fucking Tasmanian devil. It was not an American flag with USA underneath. Let's be honest. Long Island has always been fucking Long Island.
Long Island is, I would say it's white bread. It's more likely Italian bread. It's like
Long Island is New Jersey's ugly northern cousin.
Okay, so fuck you and your stupid mouth. Because it is not. New Jersey and Long Island,
that's
similarities,
good.
not the fucking same.
The trucks all look the same.
Oh,
that's good.
But
don't cancel me. Please don't cancel me.
Actually,
Actually, anybody that would have found that funny would not cancel me. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All the right people.
You're like, oh, fuck you.
Trust me, I don't think anybody who's going to cancel anybody is watching this.
No.
But where the fuck were we going with this?
Talking about Ledger being on Long Island.
But we were also talking about first time, this is when the beginning of multiple session tattoos started coming.
Yeah. Oh, and real quick, not to cut you off, somebody made a point, because I said something about Long Island tattooers one day, and they said, oh, Mike Rubendahl is the original hometown. I was like, nope, Mike Ledger was. He was the one that went up.
So that was one of the biggest issues I always had with individuals that looked at Long Island as being the home, and anything I say is going to sound shitty, and it's not meant to be. I'm sure it might get. It's not going to get back to Rubendahl, but if it does, I apologize. I think that's where everybody looks at it as like Rubendahl is the shit of Long Island. He is everything.
Now, yeah.
Is in Long Island. Well, now, yeah.
Yeah. He built that rightfully.
Oh, no, to himself.
Yeah.
And it did always burn my ass being an older generation tattooer, and not and not having somebody like Rubendahl, like Ledger, recognized. And it bums me the fuck out that the average person thinks that he's the one that brought that kind of Tibetan, uber Japanese. And again, I don't think so. The difference between Ledger and Rubendahl, and this is from my perspective, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to argue with that, is the fact that Rubendahl is a lot more trad, a lot more traditional.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where Ledger was more filler.
Oh,
what I mean? Like
you're not wrong
to
on
me,
any of
like,
that,
when I
and
look
I'm
at
sure
Japanese-
Rubendahl would agree with you on that one.
I'm sure,
Oh.
because you can't not.
How he look at his arms and know that? I mean,
Yeah.
So his sleeves are gorgeous, but
and that's the thing. I always looked at it from the standpoint of like, to me, like Japanese, while it's amazing, I would never put anything down about it. I don't do that kind of stuff because to me, I was always more interested in stuff like Ledger, and then Philip, or actually I should say Philip and then Ledger, and then a lot of those like Mauricio and a lot of these like non-traditional Japanese tattoos.
just a European twist without worrying about most of the rules or anything else.
Exactly.
Look,
You're following the rules,
look,
but not to that degree.
You know the kind of work I do. The closest I ever get to being Japanese is when I'm standing next to my wife. And she's not even full Japanese. But it's the best that I can do to honor it. And I look at the work that I did a few years ago and I'm like, oh, this is so bad. Why did you let me do that? And the only people that are going to do 100% traditional Japanese correct are the people that have dedicated their entire life to it. And 99.999% of the time are going to be Japanese. With the exception of things like Alex Hori Fox, or Hokutsune. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that can be picked apart as being incorrect. Just do a nice tattoo. But the European stuff, it's so far just removed from that traditional side, it is a look of its own. And if you can't appreciate that, I mean, a lot of people can, a lot of people can't, a lot of people scoff at it. Man, I remember the first time I saw a Philip Blue back piece. I remember the first time I saw a Poco back piece. First time I saw a Sailor Sid back. I mean, all these just big names in Europe. Fucking Mick.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, when you look at that generation of tattooer and the people that kind of clung together, like Tintin and all those guys.
Tintin's old work.
Like
oh my
god. The old work.
Yeah.
That didn't sound right. That didn't sound good to say.
It's a generational thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. But it's true. It's like when we grew up with that stuff.
Yeah.
To us, it was all fucking brand new, and I think that's part of the thing too, is the fact that with tattooing today, with the internet and fucking and social media, things happen so fucking fast that you don't even. And again, I might be wrong. Maybe it's my old brain. I don't know. But we don't even get to enjoy it. We don't get to appreciate it for any length of time.
Because by the time it hits you, it's gone. It's already passé. Or somebody has already morphed it into something else. Or there's a reason why you shouldn't like it. Or
that's a good point. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah. So I stopped. Okay, so I stopped doing my tattoo social media. Someone else handles it for me. I couldn't deal with how, I hate using this word, how toxic it had become. And toxic to me might be daily ins and outs for somebody else, and it's whatever, it's subjective. But I'm just not wired for social media. I am literally not wired for it. My brain doesn't process it properly. I use social media. We exchange really fucked up memes and videos with each other. That's all we do.
Like we've often said, if this ever got out, we'd be fine.
Oh, 100% doomed.
But again, to me, that's what fucking social media is. Social media is about dumb shit.
It's where the world goes to shit on civilization and just be awful.
Exactly. Or shit their own
Or where civility goes.
Where civility goes to shit its own pants. Because I mean, that's what it's about. It's about.
Please visit my Patreon and watch me shit my pants. Uncensored.
By the way, the day that happens, somebody put me down. But
This got weird.
So let's go back to the convention. That's kind of what we're talking about. That's why we're here. We're at the convention. We're at a show that literally has kind of embraced the days of yore. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, dude, this is the first convention I've been to, and I'm not saying this, and I am definitely not bragging about this, but this is the first convention I've been to that I am not the oldest person in the fucking room.
That's saying a lot.
That's saying it all.
Now, this is the first convention I've been to in decades where I knew almost everybody here. And it's not because it's a small show. It's because the people that are here, people in our age group, I've known my entire career, and the older guys have known me since I was just running around getting coffee for everybody and making sure that people had whatever cigarettes or knishes or anything that they want. Yeah, I just said knish. Anything that they wanted. Last year in Richmond, we went walking toward Annette's booth because Jessica wanted to meet Annette. And I see Annette, Eric Inksmith, Angelo, Dana Brunson, that whole group. Mike Wilson standing there. I went from, because I was 50 last year, I went from a 50-year-old owning my own shop for almost 20 years, traveling the world tattooing, back to being 22 fucking years old, walking up to the old guys with the coffees that they ordered, their cigarettes, whatever wanted, and making sure that everybody got their stuff, and then just standing there and being privileged enough to listen to the conversations that were being had.
Well, because if you think about it, when was the last time that group was together? When was the last time they were sharing a story like that?
Yeah.
When was the last time you were there? You know what I mean? I mean, you could be looking at decades
Yeah.
ago. You know what I mean? And it may not even happen. Like, this is like a what if scenario, because that's kind of what these things have become, because we all know, we either know each other, we know of each other, we've been someplace together but never really talked to one another. Like, there's been a lot of times, because conventions back then, everybody had their own clique. I was just getting into it, so I didn't know. I knew who those people were, but I wasn't going to walk up to them.
Yeah. It was literally 13th grade back then, because we were all young enough to where we still had that pardon my term, but butt sniffing mentality of what's this guy all about?
Yeah, but there was a certain point where you knew not to you didn't step over certain lines.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like if somebody, like Jack Rudy. So I remember the first time I met Jack.
That's intimidating as shit.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met Jack.
But he was still big.
Oh. So dude, it was Chicago.
Oh, God.
And it was a tattoo tour.
So he was with Tramp and everybody else.
Yeah, well, so I sat in, the guy who brought me in, the guy who apprenticed me, Cliff, he admired the fuck out of Jack. And like the love to say, I bought a bunch of stuff from Jack, we're like that. I took a seminar, and I was giving Jack a set of my flash, and he looked at it, he goes, can you tattoo like this? But he said it in such a way that the guinea in me got so
offended.
That I was just like, dude.
Oh.
But I had the wherewithal to be like, yeah, I like to think so. Because I don't know if it was a wherewithal or if it was just straight up like Jack's aura. Like just being like, dude, say it and he will smack the shit out of it.
Open hand.
Exactly. And again, I was some fucking dork from Long Island, dude. So I was like, yeah, I like to think so, you know? And he was just kind of gave me that look and just fucked off, did his own thing. And I was just like, okay, that's Jack Rudy, holy shit, you know?
And now I have been indoctrinated.
So I didn't even look at it that. I didn't even look at it from that perspective, because to me, I still didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To me, it was still like, I wasn't making a name for myself. I was literally only tattooing maybe 9 months at that point, you know?
Okay, so do you remember when you had to be chosen? You literally had to be anointed. And you know what I mean by that.
Okay, I do and no, because I was never in that clique.
No. I'm talking about to learn how to tattoo. You had to be chosen. There was no, well, I'm going to just learn how to tattoo, and if you're not going to teach me, I'm going to go on YouTube and buy equipment.
Okay, so the difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying is yes and no. I understand what you're saying, but I got in at a time where shop owners were that guy.
Yeah,
shop
but that's what I'm talking about.
I shouldn't apprentice somebody, but I'm going to apprentice this guy because I want to bring another body into the shop who's going to make me money. So that's a big thing. It's like you have the tattooers that looked for individuals to tattoo, or looked for individuals that were hot to want to tattoo, that came up to them, busted their balls, and then eventually let them into the shop and they opened the fucking, they pulled the curtain for them.
Yeah.
I came in at a time where shop owners, things were popping off.
Needed bodies.
I'm going to open up a second shop. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I need to bring in guys. Oh, this guy's, he's an artist. I'll bring him in. That's the problem. I wasn't vetted. I was brought in, and I was gone in a year. I quit the shop that apprenticed me inside of a year because I fucking hated the guy. If I was properly vetted which, by the way, he would have never done because he did it with a half dozen people, and they were all gone inside of a couple of years.
And they opened up down the street from him.
Exactly. Exactly. And therein lies the fucking problem.
Yeah.
So while I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
there was also the shop owner's perspective of that, where they were just as bad as the guy who was just like, I'm just gonna fucking learn how to tattoo. I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? So there is that too.
So when I was still a piercer, I had been at Tattoos by Lou for a couple of days, and I made the biggest mistake possible. I want to learn how to tattoo. And everybody in that shop went, oh, really? Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I was made to earn the right to ask questions and watch and everything else. I was threatened on a daily basis, and granted, we were all around the same age, and there was a real risk of getting tuned up in the alley, but you were going to get picked up, brushed off, and brought back inside, and you were never going to make that mistake again. So when I left, went back to South Carolina, opened a piercing shop for a minute, and became an EMT and all that stuff because I needed a real job, and tattooing was illegal.
Weird shit, which, by
I
the
did.
way, we will get into on another video.
Yeah.
Because you have a very interesting story.
But with all of that, when I got hurt as an EMT and went right back to tattooing, it was there. I was welcomed back with open arms. I was treated differently. I was treated like I belonged there. So when I went on the road, and back then when I went on the road, it's like, okay, well, thanks for letting me work here. I'm going on the road now. Good luck finding somebody to replace me. Hopefully we'll see each other again. And I left. And I went on the road for 2.5 years.
It surprises me that you were able to do that at that particular shop.
I did that in North Carolina.
Oh, in North Carolina?
Yeah, I did that at a biker shop in Monroe, North Carolina, working for, to this day, one of the greatest men I've ever known in my life, just as a good man. May not have been the best tattooist in the world, but he's a good dude. And he's an old biker. And yeah, he's just a great guy. And he taught me that you have got to maintain humanity if you're going to own a tattoo shop one day. Because if you don't, you're going to be the guy that has the revolving door. You're never going to have anybody that looks back on you fondly. And if you do have something to offer, they're never going to listen to you because you're a fucking asshole. And even if you want to give them this information, they've already checked out on you. So when I went on the road, I had planned on moving to New York City. So
really?
I went on the road, and the worst possible thing could have happened. 9/11 happened. And that little voice went, you're not moving to New York City. So I went back to my old boss in Monroe, North Carolina, and I went, hey buddy. And he said, you have a chair. He didn't have to do that. But I did. I kept going back on the road, and I would come back until finally I left, and I landed in Wilmington.
So where did we leave off?
So what I was saying is I went back to the shop in Monroe where I had worked. My boss let me work my tattoos when I was in town, but I just went back on the road because there was no money where I was. I was in middle of North Carolina in the country, and people were very afraid. The only real industry out there was big industry. Plastics was one of the big industries out there, and their entire production came to a halt because they didn't know what was going to happen. So I did what I had been doing, and I went back on the road because back then you could still go on the road, work 8-9 conventions a year, do guest spots in between each convention, and make a good living. Things were a lot cheaper back then.
It was a different, that was
gas was $1 a gallon still. In some places you could get in your car and drive cross country and not go broke. Also, we didn't have social media, so if you were going to do a guest spot, you had to call somebody, know somebody, send a letter to somebody.
And not for nothing, those were wonderful times.
And that's how, when a younger tattooist, like my youngest at my shop, says, how do you know all these people? It's like, this is what we did. You went, you did conventions, you saw the same people at the shows, so you became friendly with them. And then if you knew the promoter, you say, hey, can you put us all in the same row? And then they figured out they were never going to put you guys in the same row together again. It became the row that nobody wanted to walk down.
Nobody wanted to walk down, yeah.
So Frank Lee and I actually had an issue at a convention, which last time we worked together,
broken again.
Okay.
I'm sorry, dude.
You're good. You're not putting quarters in it, Joe.
I know, but by the way, I fucking hate this.
Editing. That's what editing's for.
Yeah, so Frank.
So there was an incident, and I didn't see Frank again for forever. We worked Baltimore and Philly in 2009 together.
God, that's when I tried to get tattooed by him.
That was the biker war.
Fuck off. Yeah, Philly was. This is when Philadelphia convention was the fucking Philadelphia. Like, what passes for the Philly convention now?
It's curated.
Yeah, you know what's funny?
Too curated.
I shouldn't say this because I've never done it. I've never done the hodgepodge bullshit of the Philly convention. But yeah, man, it's not the same convention.
Yeah, and you remember when you could go to a show, nobody was fully booked unless they had clients in the area.
Yeah.
And you went there, you set up, and everybody just went fishing. You sat in your booth, you talked shit to each other from across the hall, and it was a great time. And everybody tattooed, and it was bonkers. And that night, everybody was on the floor, and then they went to the bar, and it was still bonkers. And there may or may not have been some criminal acts committed at after parties, you know, things like that. The things that weren't safe, but fuck, man, they were fun.
Well, that was the thing. Like, that's when you left, and I'm not going to say this didn't happen to people, that this doesn't happen to people now, but then it was such a fucking, I remember the it wasn't the last year I did the Philly convention, it was the time, it was the first year I did it with Corey Kruger.
I used to love Corey's tattooing. Holy shit.
He was an amazing tattooer. So, I think it was 2000, I think it was, we did the Philly show, 2001. And I had a suite. We had Guy Aitchison, fucking
Michelle
Wortman.
Kim Reed was there too, wasn't she?
But these are people working in my suite.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, they're all hanging out working in my suite. I'm not even going to get into the fucking details because it annoyed the fucking living shit out of me. But regardless, it happened, and it was something to remember. The next day, I remember I had to get a painting off of an artist named Bill Tarr. And he came down to drop the painting off, and I'm like, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, how's your day going? He was just like, good, I just took an elevator downstairs with the county coroner. I'm like, who died? And I said it
Oh,
jokingly.
shit.
I said it joking. And he was just like,
Jay.
some guy named Jay Pedro on the 9th floor. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I couldn't believe it. So it turns out
Marty was tattooing him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I collect my painting.
Yeah.
He goes off. Corey and I drive back to New Hampshire. I get back to New Hampshire that evening, and Martin Lacasse, at the time, his name was
Lancaster.
Lancaster, yeah. He calls me up and he goes, hey man, you were at the convention last night, right? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, what happened? I'm like, what do you mean what happened? He's like, well, what happened that was fucked up that week? I was like, dude, everything happened. Like, some guy got his eye broke, fucking, there was all kinds of stupid
eye
shit
socket in the bar.
Yeah. And he goes, did somebody die? And I'm like, oh yeah, there was a guy, some guy died on the 9th floor. And he goes, was his name Jay Pedro? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, it was. He goes, dude, I tattooed him.
Tattooed his foot?
And my response, and I feel horrible having said
Never get tattooed by Marty.
No, I literally went, Martin, what did you do?
And that's a sensitive guy too, so.
I felt so bad. But yeah, that was, and not to say that's not happened at other shows, but for
Jay
me,
Pedro tattoo.
Oh shit, for real?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. But that was like one of the, I'd say that was one of the first conventions that I really was at where a lot of crazy shit happened in a very close proximity to me, because normally my head was down and I was just tattooing, you know. So I didn't think about all the dumb hubbub that happens at shows, because usually I was just tattooing, you know.
So there was a meme on Instagram at one point. I don't know who did it. It wasn't the usual offenders now. I want to say it was like the old tattoo counter guy meme page. You know, it's from like 3 years ago. So, you know, so far in the past. And it was tattoo conventions in the 90s be like, and it was a scene from a movie in a prison riot. And they're like throwing things on fire, people getting pushed off the balconies, and like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, makes sense. I would have been more like four weddings and a funeral or something like that. Like, shit show.
So my wife and my mentor's granddaughter are flipping me off currently over your shoulder.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Paradise.
He's just like this.
She's killing me. So anyway,
God.
Conventions.
Conventions.
Yes, the cultural exchange of conventions.
Exactly. The cultural exchange.
Hey, hang on.
Putting it politely.
Your first convention in Europe.
My first convention in Europe was pretty amazing because it was also my first trip to Europe. It was my first trip, first like major trip. So my first international trip was my first trip with my girlfriend at the time, who would eventually become my wife.
Alicia.
So for me,
So awesome.
that was tremendous.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was to Lausanne, Switzerland. So we.
Oh, that's picturesque.
Oh, dude.
That's.
I got asked
man.
to go by a guy, this cat named Swiss John, who was a tattooer from Switzerland, moved to Long Island, and named Swiss John. Because apparently.
If you're gonna pick up a moniker.
Well, that's the thing. Fucking dopey Long Islanders can't come up with a better fucking name, you know. So they come up with this name, Swiss John. So he's like, I start tattooing him. He's like, oh, I do this. I have a friend in Lausanne. He does a convention. This guy named Bit. This guy Bit now works for
Sailor Bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
he's such a nice guy.
Wonderful
Oh my
guy.
God.
Exactly. So we go out to the convention. Amazing. Like I get to meet Philip Blue that year. Like I work next to I didn't work next to Tintin at that one. I worked. Who did I work next to at that show? Fuck, I don't remember. But dude, Tintin is there, Mick is there, fucking Philip is there. Oh, actually, that's not true. First year Philip didn't do it. Second year Philip. But dude, the amount of artists that were there, and I ended up like it was just an amazing convention because being around all these fucking European artists, and I'm like one of 3 American artists.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was just starting to make a name for myself. This would have been 90. This is like probably 2 years of being in the magazines, 3 years of being in the magazines.
95, 96?
Yeah, it was probably, no, it was like 97, 97, 98. And dude, it was tremendous. And it wasn't even ego boost, it was more of an ego fucking, like, it was like drowning my ego. Because all the people you were around, and you got all these European fans, and they're like, oh my God, Joe Capobianco, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, dude, that's Tintin, that's fucking Mick, that's fucking Robert Hernandez.
No. Those are the flavors that they have all year long. You're the limited time flavor.
I guess, but when I looked at it, I was like, this is a joke. Like, these guys are fucking amazing. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing, you know?
We all were at that point.
But to me, and then after that, we went on a tour. We went to the south of France, we went to Spain, and it was like running around. It was crazy. We really didn't get to enjoy it like you do today. But it was also, this is before fucking cell phones, before the internet, this is before you can figure out what was open. Like, you literally just
Adventure.
You took Europe by the balls.
Adventure. I got a Eurorail. When I got that Eurorail pass, they're like, all right, these are all the countries you can go to. I was like, what?
Well, I was there at a time where Italy still had the lira.
Yeah.
You know, you had the Swiss franc.
Lira,
and
franc.
The French franc. So, which is a big fucking deal.
The mark.
Oh God, the German mark.
Trying to get that fucking thing exchanged.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So, and at the convention in Switzerland, so I had one guy try to pay me in Swiss francs, which is different from French francs.
Yep.
Which was a big fucking deal.
It's totally different.
Exactly. So that was the thing. Everywhere you went, you had to change your currency.
Yeah, because at the train station when you got in, there was the exchange office right there.
Exactly.
And you knew where it was because there was a line. There was always a line. Quick, but man, I remember the first time I went to Czech Republic, and I was like, how the fuck do people live here? I just lost 25% of everything I had. And the guy that I was staying with was like, yeah, you ought to live here.
The worst part about it is it still happens.
Holy shit.
You go to Canada, like Jimmy was telling me, he was in Canada last month. 2 months ago, and I'm like, how was the show? And he's like, it was okay, it wasn't bad, it was all right. And I'm like, oh, so you did well? And he goes, yeah, I did well until I fucking cashed out.
Here's 100,000 Canadian dollars. Wait, this is like $11.
He's like, you want to just exchange it for a pack of cigarettes?
So when I was in Europe, when I was touring Europe, I was tattooing in this little shitty town, just a little shitty town in Belgium, and it was really nice. And I was staying at a hostel, but I was the only one there, so it was fucking awesome. It was picturesque. You know, and every morning they have breakfast waiting, little proper Belgian breakfast. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to leave. And this woman looks at me in this really good, articulated New York accent. And she goes, well, you got to check out, so you got to go.
Nice.
I was like, I looked at her, she goes, I moved here a few years ago. I'm from the city. You got to go. I was like,
you need to fuck off.
Okay. So I remember packing up all my stuff, which was a backpack, a suitcase, and a roller. A roller with a lock on it, like a steel, like an aluminum case roller. And I'm coming down the steps, and she goes, in this like Flemish accent out of nowhere, like, enjoy your trip. And I was like, I see what you did. It's a fraud. So that's when I went from Belgium to Avignon and drank the local liqueur that night. And the train ride I had I still say is the worst hangover I've ever had.
Really?
And everybody in my car, they're like, oh, are you okay? Are you sick? I was like, no, I went to the Chocolate or the bar. And they're like, they're doing the little dance that they did there, because it was like 800 square feet, low ceiling, black walls, like a long bar, a 6-inch tall stage, and the year 2000 equivalent of like bad dance music. And it was super loud, but it was amazing. So I drank all these liqueurs, and on my way to Czech Republic, I'm like, I'm dying. And all the people in there are like enjoying themselves, like, oh, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I told them what happened. They're all like, they love this bar. I'm like, I just want to throw up right now. And you guys are like reveling in this. This isn't cool. Turns out one of the guys on the cart, we hit it off. He was like, yeah, what do you do? I was like, I'm a tattooist. He's like, oh, my friend is a tattoo shop in Prague. We'll go there. I'm like, okay. There's a hostel right across the street. I end up tattooing in this place called Tattoo. I got tattooed there for a few days. The people, I was on I was not on the touristy side of the river. So it was like being in Prague proper and not like the fake Prague. It was like where real people, Czech Republic, live. So I got to go to these restaurants. I got to meet these people. Everybody's really welcoming, super fucking friendly. Yeah. It was so easy to travel around Europe and just meet people, because people wanted to talk to you.
Yes.
They didn't give a shit if you were American. They wanted to talk to you like, oh, I like your tattoos. Or, why do you have those tattoos? But they weren't like somebody would be here where they'd just be a dickhead. Right. It was an experience. Even if somebody was an asshole to you, like, wow, that's the first asshole I've met. That was great. And just walk on.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I love you. Fuck off.
Well, I mean, my first trip, and we'll probably end it on that because things are kind of winding down here.
Yeah.
But my first trip, when I, like with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, we go to Switzerland. Now, I'm gonna say the good part first, and then I'm gonna end with the bad part. So the good part was I get to work at Bit's shop. So he's across the street from Philip. The day before
the walk up,
the three-story walk.
I love that building.
Go up there, hang out a few hours with Philip. We go to dinner afterwards. The next day I'm tattooing. Turns out my wife was kind of hungover from hanging out the night before. She didn't really drink much. So she stays in, I go to the shop and I tattoo over. Wonderful. Like I got to tattoo my first time in a shop in Europe. It was amazing. My wife shows up and it turns out there's an American, a Japanese American woman and a German guy who owned the Airbnb or the B&B, the B&B that we're staying in. And she wishes my wife a happy Thanksgiving. So we're there for Thanksgiving. We didn't even know. The bad part of this is we're in Switzerland for less than 20 hours. We go to I guess it was a hostel. We stay in a place. It's like there's like single rooms all up top and a shared bathroom.
Yeah. End of the hallway.
Traveling for
Always
like
at the end of the
fucking
hallway.
15 hours, whatever. We get into this place. I'm like this big fat fucker. We get in and there's these little cots. Right out of the gate, we're just exhausted. I go and sit my fat ass on one of these cots to get some sleep, and the fucking thing blows out from underneath me. Blows out. Just blows the fuck out. That was my first trip. I destroyed a cot, slept on the floor with my my many years to be later wife. My first trip to Europe. That was my fucking first trip.
Yeah. So before we conclude this, I just want to go ahead and say this. Typical you and me, this went way off in another direction several times other than talking about conventions, but you and I have so many stories about conventions and traveling that I feel sorry because a lot of young tattooers won't do it. They won't travel. They won't do conventions.
I agree.
And it breaks my heart because it's what makes you a fucking tattooer. Anybody can do a fucking tattoo. Let's be honest, anybody can do a tattoo.
Agreed.
But not everybody can be a tattooer. And you have to become a tattooer.
Well, I want to agree with you. And I want to end this on a good agreeing moment. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Not anymore. No,
honestly,
it's not. It's not anymore.
I mean, things have changed so much that it really don't fucking matter no more.
No, nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly. People think like they're a tattooer because they do tattoos. And not for nothing, good on you. Whatever. Whatever. So,
Yeah.
on that note, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure.
I'm gonna leave everything for Jason's shop and everything else. This convention, I'm gonna leave it all in the description. Please like and subscribe. Check out Jason. And hey man, thanks very much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. Hey guys, see you when I see you.
Let's go get dinner.